So welcome everybody. I'm Kat. I'm a product manager on the seller services team at Etsy, and I've worked at Etsy for a little over 10 years. I've been focused that entire time on the seller side of the business and particularly the selling experience. And I've had many years on the payments team. I worked many years on the payments team, working on features related to shop finances. If you're lucky, you may remember me from a previous finance talk I hosted a couple years ago. If not, no worries. Today, I'll review some of the basics that you need to know, and we'll also send a link to that recording in a follow-up email after this session. I think that email is going to go out early next week. So outside of my 9-to-5 day job at Etsy, I love doing nail art. And you wouldn't know today because I'm not sporting anything today, but I usually do have a lot of different designs on my hands. And I run a really very small Etsy shop where I get to share my love of nail art with the world. And so today with you all, oh, thanks. There's my shop in there. Today with you all, I am going to put on my seller hat. And yes, this is made also by a seller on Etsy. And I'm going to share my screen with you and show you my shop. And I'm going to review the payment account. I'm going to talk about, as a seller, my experience, how I think about finances, and when and how you get paid when you make a sale. That's going to be the main focus. I'm also going to talk about why some shops might experience delays with their funds and how to get support for your finances. These are some of the more frequently asked questions and topics that we heard from the seller community. So I'm really excited to dig in. I hope you are. And if you stick around till the end, you'll hear about some new financial tools available to you and possibly win a special giveaway just for today's session attendees. As you probably already saw in the chat, I have an amazing team of Etsyans here with me today, helping me facilitate this session. You might see them pop more responses. Oh, there's another one. This is my amazing sweater. More responses in the chat. I love a lively chat. I may not be able to keep up with everything as I'm presenting. So my fellow Etsyans are here to help me out. Okay, so thanks team. Let's get started. All right. The first thing I want to do is very, very quickly just introduce you to our payment platform so that you're familiar when I say the words Etsy Payments, what I mean by that. So Etsy Payments is the primary way to get paid on Etsy and gives your shop the ability to provide shoppers with locally relevant and preferred payment options when they're in checkout, the checkout experience that you see here. So we have a lot of different payment methods. We show them based off of the shopper's preference. They could be things like different credit cards, Etsy gift cards, mobile wallets, and even buy now, pay later payment methods. Okay, that's enough. Now it's this time. I'm going to switch my screen and bring you to my Etsy.com homepage, and I'm going to jump into my shop manager. So I do that by going to the upper right-hand corner of my homepage and clicking Shop Manager. And when I do that, it opens up this page, which is my dashboard on Shop Manager. My dashboard gives me a quick overview of some important information about my shop. And the first thing I notice as a seller when I come in here is I have some orders. And that's great because that's what I want to talk to you about today. Let's really quickly look into those orders. Essentially, I just want to get a sense of my money right now. So I see about a $16 a $38, and a $21 order. So I'm expecting about $75 in my finance experience. So when you've made a sale, you'll want to start fulfilling the order right away. Usually that's what I do. But since today I'm focused on the financial experience, I'm actually going to skip over to my payment account and show you some essentials about your finances and how I navigate answering some of my questions when I'm thinking about my finances. So over on the left-hand side, I'll click Finances. There's no visual. Let me just make sure. I see someone in the chat saying that they can't see visual. Okay, and I'm just going to check with my team. Okay, great. I'm glad y'all can see. Excellent. All right, so back to it. In the left-hand side, I'm going to Finances, and the main page in Finances is Payment Account. And here it is. The payment account is where I can see all of my financial activity. I'm going to take this off for a second and just explain a couple of things. The first thing that you see on the payment account is whether you have any unpaid fees due to Etsy. And we call this the amount due. When you're thinking about your earnings, because I want to tie this whole session back to your earnings and your sales, when you're thinking about your earnings, you need to remember that Etsy automatically subtracts your fees from the money that you make from your sales. So in this section of the payment account, this first section, you'll see a balance due if your fees from the previous month that weren't covered, your fees from the previous month weren't covered by your sales. So on the first of the month, if all of your financial activity ends up summing up this last line, summing up to something negative, then an amount that's negative, then you will have an amount due, and you will need to pay those fees to Etsy. I can see here that my sales have covered my fees, so I don't owe anybody I don't owe Etsy fees to pay back to them. So let's move on to the next section, which is where I really wanted to focus with you. And this is the available for deposit module in your bank. This section of your payment account tells you how much money you have available right now to move into your bank account. So when you have money left over after your fees are deducted from your sales and your sales have finished processing, you'll have a positive balance. And we call this the available for deposit. So back to Seller Cat. Here I am, the nail artist. We just looked at my orders and saw that I made $75, about $75. That's what I was expecting. But I'm only seeing $28 here that's in my available for deposit module. And I'm asking myself, just like any vigilant shop owner would ask herself, where's the rest of my money? So let me explain. There are many processes that Etsy handles in order for you to receive a transaction from a buyer and send money to your bank account. When you make a sale, Etsy's payment system and payment service providers run checks on the transaction and on your shop to ensure safe, secure, and compliant money movement. For some shops, like shops that have recently opened, so if you're new to Etsy, or if you reopened after taking a long break, these checks can take 14 days. This means it can take 14 days for the funds from your sale, so funds that I saw today from my sales, to appear here in this available for deposit balance and be scheduled for deposit into your bank account. If your shop is in good standing, then 90 days after you make your first sale, our checks can take as little as 1 day. And this is because we've spent those 90 days running a bunch of checks and balances to build our highest confidence that your shop is safe from fraudulent or risky activity. We know how important timely and speedy access to funds can be for sellers, and we work hard to balance that with protecting the marketplace and the buyer experience. The majority of established sellers on Etsy see funds from their sales added to their available for deposit balance one day after receiving an order. There is one thing to note here. It's that since I saw there's some sellers from Germany and all over the world that are here with us today, sellers that reside in the European Economic Area, or the EEA, will have funds made available to them in 14 days, regardless of your tenure on the platform. And this is because Etsy needs to follow some additional requirements specific to the EEA. So I'm gonna go back into seller mode. Here we go. We just learned about processing time. And I know I made about $75 worth of sales. I see 28. I'm wondering how long is my processing time? So what I'm going to do is hover over this amount here that's underlined, and I can see more information about my shop. And what I see here is that orders will be available for deposit 1 business day after a sale. That makes sense to me because I've been making sales on Etsy for well over 90 days, and I believe my shop to be in good standing. So 1 business day makes sense. Okay, we also saw I have a total balance of $65. That makes sense to me because I know I made $75, and I also know now that Etsy subtracts fees right away from my sales. So this is the amount less my sales. So why isn't it 65 that I'm getting? It's because I can see that 2 of these sales are not yet available to be deposited, and they equal $37. That's how we got to the $28. Well, my next question as a seller is, when are they going to be available? I want to know. I like to keep track of my cash flow. I like to just know when my money is coming in and coming out. So I'm going to scroll down in my payment account to this area called recent activities and see if that can help me determine when I'm going to get the money from those 2 sales. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. Recent activities is a very simple list of financial activity that happens in your shop. Any fee, credit, sale, refund, bill payment, deposit. If it results in money in or money out, it's reflected here in a list. It's just a list. You can see these activities grouped together above if you wanted to see them categorized in some ways. But for right now, I want to know when my sale that I made is going to be available for deposit. So as a seller, I guess I'll put this back on. As a seller, I'm looking here and I see my sale I made today. Today's February 27th. I made a sale, and I see under the sale that it's going to be available on February 28th. That makes sense to me because we just saw that my payment processing time is 1 business day. I made this sale today. 1 day from now is February 28th. Great. So now I'm going to ask myself, when do I get my deposits? Does that mean tomorrow on the 28th, this money is going to be deposited to me? That's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to go back up to my available for deposit section because that is when it tells me about that is where it tells me about my deposits. And I see here that my deposit is scheduled for March 3rd. And so I think that's interesting. And why aren't I getting, I think to myself, why aren't I getting that $28 today? Why is it March 3rd? And I can see that that's because I selected a deposit schedule of monthly. And the next monthly deposit goes out on Monday, March 3rd. It's always the first Monday of every month. So this is really important to remember. The 14-day or the 1-day processing time does not mean that you will get a deposit at the end of that time frame. It means that the money is available for you to deposit, and then Etsy will send the deposit when you've chosen for Etsy to send the deposit. So for me, I only want deposits from Etsy monthly, and so that's why this is selected. But we do have other options for you, and there may be different reasons why you'd want a different deposit schedule. So I want to dig into that with you. And in order to do that, I'm actually going to switch back to my presentation because this next section is in my payment settings page, and I'm going to protect some of my personal information that's shown there. So one moment. Great. Okay, so this is a screenshot with some information redacted or covered up of the payment settings page. This is where you can update your bank account information, update your deposit schedule, which we're going to talk about more in a moment. And you can also manage other financial areas of your shop, like listing currency up here or setting up your billing, over here. So let's look at this deposit schedule. This is a drop down that you can click, and you can choose between daily, weekly, biweekly, or monthly. And determining your deposit schedule preference is up to you and your individual circumstance. So I can't really tell you what's right for you, but I can tell you some things that you might want to consider. So some banks charge a fee for receiving deposits. If this applies to you, you might want to consider one of the longer time frames in the schedule, so maybe every 2 weeks or once a month, in order to avoid too many fees. Some sellers want a longer deposit, like that biweekly, that every 2 weeks or every month, just to keep their funds in their payment account so their fees can be subtracted from their earnings and they can worry less about outstanding fees to pay. That's essentially what I do since my shop is so small. I just like for it to kind of run a little bit in the background for me. Some sellers have a regular process of reconciling their finances. So how often do you check your bank account or calculate your business profit margins? You might want to match your deposit schedule to match the times when you are naturally focusing on reviewing your finances. And then some sellers like to receive their money as fast as possible, which makes a lot of sense. A lot of us use this money for our day-to-day expenses or even to fulfill the order that we just made. So even if it's just for ease of mind and you want the funds immediately, we have shorter options like weekly and daily. If you do select daily, you'll have to keep in mind that there's a minimum deposit amount for daily. So the minimum amount varies by country. In the United States, it's $25. In other states, in other countries, it's comparable to $25. And so how it works is that Etsy will look every day at your deposit amount, see if you've at least met that minimum. If you have not, then Etsy is not going to deposit that money and is going to look the next day and the next day and the next day until Monday. And every Monday, if you're on daily, regardless of how much money there is, you will get a deposit. But if you are over that minimum, you'll get the deposit every day. Another call out I have to talk about in this section is that if you've set up your Etsy payments using your Payoneer account, which is required for certain countries that are selling on Etsy, then your deposit amount options are set to weekly and they can't be changed at this time. So there's one more thing about deposits. In addition to your schedule, which is an automatic deposit schedule, you don't have to do anything. You set this, and then when you have money, Etsy's going to send it at that time. But eligible shops can also manually initiate a deposit. And you can do that back in your payment account where we were viewing our deposit amount. So I'll switch back to my payment account. Here we are. So up here in my deposit section, my available for deposit section, I noticed that there's a button here called Request It Now. And if I click this button, then Etsy will deposit will schedule my deposit for the next business day. So notice right now how my deposit is scheduled for Monday, March 3rd. If I click Request It Now, I'm going to click it, and we're going to see how this changes. Okay, we've scheduled a deposit for you for the next available date. Great. And that next available date is February 28th. So now this $28 I can expect to be sent from my payment account into my bank account tomorrow. And then I know tomorrow more money will become available for deposit because we saw that other sale would be available tomorrow. So one thing to remember is that this is a one-time change. See how my deposit schedule is still set to monthly. For my next deposit, it's still going to respect monthly, and I would have the Request It Now button would come back up. And if I wanted the money sooner, I could click it again for the next amount. But when the deposit is sent, that doesn't mean I'm going to see this $28 in my bank account tomorrow. I could, but it just depends on your bank. It can take anywhere from 1 to 5 business days for the money to be reflected in your bank account. And again, it just really depends on your bank account. But shops that can connected to Etsy Payments using their Payoneer account, since that's a digital wallet, they usually do see their funds in the digital wallet within 1 business day. Okay, so we talked about the basics of how and when funds become available to you when you make a sale. And now I want to go back to my presentation because for this next part, we saw many requests in our community to talk about bank verification because it can impact the timing of your funds and deposit schedule. So let me jump back in there. Okay, so when you add or change your bank account, you will need to complete a bank verification process. And when verification is successful, Etsy pauses or holds deposits for 5 business days as an extra measure to protect your funds in case the bank account wasn't updated by you. We want funds to go to your bank account, as I'm sure you do too, not to a bad actor. So that's where now bank verification helps too. So bank verification differs based off of your bank country and your bank. And once again, any seller using Payoneer will manage their bank account details directly in their Payoneer account. So what I'm going to talk about next is Etsy's bank verification process. So if you did not connect with Payoneer, this is the verification process to be aware of. We're going to start with banks in the United States. For sellers with banks in the United States, when you edit your bank details, you will be immediately prompted to verify those bank details using our third-party partner, Plaid. Most sellers who are verifying with Plaid go through what you see here, this Plaid instant flow. What you'll be asked to do, which is normal but might feel a little scary, is to enter your online banking username and password. Then an a verification happens right on the spot with Plaid, and you usually get your results instantly. For some shops that are using smaller banks, credit unions, or had an issue with the instant process, there's another way that you can go through bank verification, and that's by manually entering your account number, your routing number, and receiving a small deposit that you would verify with Etsy, or uploading a bank statement. And usually this process takes about 3 to 5 business days to complete the verification. If anything goes wrong during this verification process, you do have 30 days to successfully complete it and get it right, work out the kinks and the issues before your selling privileges are suspended. So now let's talk about if your bank is not in the US. You're required to initiate the verification once you've made your first sale. So if you haven't made a sale yet, you don't have to worry about bank verification just yet. But if you have made a sale, then you should see a prompt in your payment settings to start your verification process. And you have 30 days from that sale to start the verification process. Most sellers with banks outside the US can verify their bank account by sending a small deposit. And so that usually takes about 5 business days to receive the deposit, come back to Etsy, enter in the amount that you see, and complete the verification. But there is something important to note, which is if your bank currency is in a currency that's different from the currency you see in your payment account, then you can't use the small deposit test because your bank will convert the deposit amount. So there'll be a mismatch between the amount Etsy sent and the amount you see in your bank account. If this applies to you, don't worry. There's another path for you. You can tell it that your bank account is in another currency and then go through a flow where you upload your bank statement. And this, again, also takes up to 5 business days for the review to be complete. If you've started bank verification and you have issues while you're in the middle of that process, you have 60 days to successfully complete it before selling privileges are suspended. So hopefully you have enough time to figure out any of the issues, and Etsy can work with you as well. We have another frequently requested topic from our seller community, and that is reserves. I'm going to talk about it today because today is all about how and when I'm going to get my money, and a reserve can impact the amount that you expect in your deposit. So a payment account reserve is when a percentage of your funds from each sale of a physical item is not available for deposit for a period of time. In addition, this is separate from the 14-day or the 1-day processing time. I explained earlier the 14-day and the 1-day processing time was about us ensuring secure money movement, right? And that the transaction was secure. So why also have a reserve? The reason is when there's money in a shop's payment account, Etsy can provide a better experience to buyers when the buyer needs a refund. We know it's important for sellers to receive their money as fast as possible. We also know that easy refunds and quick resolution when there is a problem with an order is crucial for our buyers, for your buyers, and for the marketplace to meet Etsy's buyer expectation. So reserves are super common in online marketplaces, and they're really there to protect buyers and sellers when there's a heightened risk of refund. So when do we think that there could be a heightened risk of refund? I can't talk about your shop's specific situations, but generally things like a sudden increase in orders that's very, very unusual for you could sometimes result in many refunds. Orders that aren't shipped on time, usually buyers then ask for a refund. And just simply the fact, like if you have an increase in refunds, those are some reasons why shops are placed in reserve. And if a reserve is placed in your shop, you'll receive an email from Etsy. You'll be able to track the money in your payment account. You'll see this blue section here that gives you information about the amount of money, which orders are in reserve, and when they'll be out of the reserve. And just remember, reserves are temporary. A reserve is removed from the shop after that set time period that Etsy set with you. And as long as your shop remained in good standing, you were still shipping your orders within your processing times and showing some good customer service. So I've gone over a lot of information today. And if you don't remember everything, don't worry. The first thing is this session is recorded and you can always come back to it. And the second thing is I want to walk you through some ways you can self-service to get some help. And so I'm going to go back into my shop manager and show you just a couple of things to make sure you were aware of this. In your shop manager on the left side, there's a help section. And the first link you'll see in the help section, I'll show it to you, is Etsy's Help Center. So here, if you have a specific question, you can just search deposit schedules. You can search for it and you can see a whole bunch of help content related to your search. The next thing I want to make sure you know about is the seller handbook. So both of these things are really great. The help content is more like generalized, you can search for a topic. The seller handbook is specifically tailored for sellers and contains more details that are aimed at helping you improve your shop and helping you be a business or a marketer and different specialized topics like that. The next thing, though, is that you can reach an Etsy support agent. And I want to show you in the help section, if you click contact us, then you're brought to the Etsy contact area. And as a seller, you can click selling on Etsy. And some of these, so there's a lot of topics for you to like follow the path through to see if we can give you some information before reaching out to an agent. But let's go down a path since we're talking about finances and we're talking about deposits. What I want to show you is that we surface some information and some help content. But some of these topics that you can go down, you can click, I still need help. And some of the topics have what we call live chat. So if you were to click this, chat with us, it's a 24/7 availability chat service with a live agent, and we give you the estimated response time there. There's one more thing. Some other topics, not every topic has a live chat. Some other topics, this will have you email an agent, just so you know. There's one more thing in the spirit of help, which is back in the shop manager for shops that are located in the US and Canada right now. You'll notice in the lower right-hand corner of your manager, there's this chat bot feature. The feature, essentially what it does is it reads our help content for you, and it uses generative AI to answer your question. So I tested this out earlier, and I asked it, what are my deposit schedule options? It lets me know that it's a chat AI. It's nice and friendly. And then it gave me my answer. Sellers can choose from daily, weekly, biweekly, or monthly deposit schedules. And it gives me a link to the article where it got that information, and I can give it some feedback so that it can learn and get better in the future. One other nifty thing here is that if this didn't answer my question and I want to speak to an agent, you can also type in here, contact an agent or speak to someone live, something along that lines, and it will connect you to the live chat. I know that right now it's only available in the US and Canada, and we have sellers in this session from all over the world. The team is working on expanding this feature into new regions. So I really hope that what I've gone over today helps you understand how and when Etsy makes funds available to you, maybe a little bit of the reasoning about how money works and why sometimes things might take longer than expected or than you really want. And we know that as creative entrepreneurs, you're juggling a lot. So Etsy really wants to help you with those administrative and business management tasks so that you can focus on what makes your business unique, which is your craft or your keen vintage eye. So we try to offer these suite of tools, but we also search for established partners to support your success. So there are things you might see in here, like here, QuickBooks and TurboTax. We use Intuit for tax and bookkeeping. There's actually another seller event session that was specific to Intuit, and our follow-up email will have a link to that if you weren't able to attend it. We also have services like LegalZoom for business formation, and we've recently been working with 2 new partners that can help you manage your business finances. Those 2 partners are YouLend and Found, and I want to give you a quick deep dive or a quick dive into those, an introduction to those, if you will. So I'm going to start with YouLend. We know that cash flow fluctuates when you own your own business. And we also know that access to additional funding can be difficult, expensive, and daunting. Our partner, YouLend, provides funding for hundreds of thousands of small businesses annually. They've empowered Etsy sellers to achieve a variety of business needs, like buying supplies in bulk. When you do that, you could unlock lower prices or have more supplies on hand to have faster processing times, or even hiring employees. We've heard from our sellers. I always love this one. Some of our sellers told us they used their extra funds to finally buy the new machinery that they had been using. One seller talked to us about her sewing machine, and another seller talked to us about getting another laser engraver for his shop and how that really opened up his production. So when it comes to this program, our success metric is your shop growth and satisfaction. So, so far, what we've observed is that Etsy sellers that have used YouLend for funding have seen their sales grow by about 8%, and that's 28% higher compared to the shops that didn't take the funding. So again, it's not a guarantee that your shop's going to grow. It's all about how you use the money, but it does give you the option to take your shop to the next level. So as a small business, I don't know when I'm going to get my next sale. And so getting a cash advance, I might be a little nervous about that. What I like about YouLend is that the repayment fee is fixed. You agree on it with YouLend ahead of time, and you repay the cash advance when you make sales. So if you're not making sales for a month or they dip a little bit, you're not required to pay a set amount every month back to YouLend it's going to fluctuate with your sales. Ulen currently supports many countries where Etsy sellers are based. So Ulen supports the US, the UK, France, Poland, and Germany. And if you're interested and want to learn more about funding through Ulend, you can find more information in the Seller Handbook article that I think we're going to link into chat soon. The next thing I want to talk about quickly is Found, which is our latest partnership. And we are actually piloting this partnership next month. So before I get into that, I do want to explain what I mean by piloting a partnership. We're always on the lookout for financial management tools that help grow your business. But we want to ensure that the partners that we choose will deliver the value that we expect for our sellers. So we'll often launch a new partnership with a small scale to test it or pilot it. So in this case, we're piloting Found in the US first before potentially expanding similar offerings to more regions. So if you're a US seller attending today's event, you have early access to this partnership and a bonus offer with Found before we begin marketing it next month. What is Found? Okay, let's get to it. They are an established small business financial technology company that works with banking partners to provide banking solutions for entrepreneurs like you. Think of it as a one-stop shop for your shop business banking needs, including tax support, bookkeeping, and a lot of other features. So some of the ways that a Found account may be helpful for our Etsy sellers is, first, you'll get access to a bank account designed for small businesses. Among other features, the bank account can track and categorize your expenses and help you estimate your taxes so that you can set aside the right amount of money. Found will help find write-offs for your business. In fact, Etsy sellers who already used Found have saved an average of $1,300 on their 2024 taxes. You can also earn cashback deals on debit card purchases at participating retailers. And just a little tip, keeping your business finances separated from your personal finances can help you more easily understand your margins, your cash flow, and help you make business decisions a little easier. So our partnership products are always optional. We only suggest them if we think that some sellers could benefit from those services. And if that is you, if you are interested, after the event, we'll send early access details on how to apply for a free Found account and how US sellers from this session, can get an extra $100 into their Found account with qualifying deposits. Okay. I really want to thank you for taking this time to be with me today. I hope that this walkthrough was helpful, that some of the things that I covered today were helpful for you, and can help you explore the next steps for your business. Well, today's session was focused on timing of your funds and deposits. We also have a recorded session that I mentioned earlier that covers details on Etsy payments, more about your payment account. It goes into fees and calculating profit margins. That link, again, will be in the follow-up email that you can expect sometime early next week. But before you go, wait, remember I said earlier there was a giveaway. So we're giving 10 sellers who join this session today 10 free listings. And we're going to drop those lucky winners in the chat. Ooh, the suspense. Oh, here it is. Yay! All right. J.M. Hagler Art, Sarah's Craft Chest, B. Mandala, Punky Bun Knits, Gathering Old Memories, Dragonfire Glass, Barton Eye Designs, So French, So Chic, Ellen Cox Art, and Maddie Bug Makes. Congratulations. I really hope you enjoyed the session. I hope things were helpful. Stay tuned to sellerevents.etsy.com to check out other upcoming workshops and events. And as always, you can explore the Seller Handbook for more resources for you. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.